Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. You bet I'm waving the flag today. I'm waving it because my guest has stories to tell. Welcome, Bill. Welcome. I see you brought your uniform. You've got more scrambled eggs and things on there. What's the rank?
Chief Engineman.
Okay, so you know engines. Engines of what?
Well, on the old boats, we had diesel on here, and then I learned steam on here. This is actually a steam plant.
This is a submarine with a steam plant?
Heated by nuclear power, yes. Mm-hmm.
Now go figure. Now, where were you on board? Where did you first get on this submarine?
On this particular submarine?
Any submarine.
Any submarine?
Yes.
Oh, the first one was in 1947.
Okay.
You know, it was on the old fleet boat. I got on this boat here in 1959, January 59.
Now, your family has some connection with military. Back
Yes.
to World War II?
Yes.
What's that story?
I had an uncle that was in when the war started, and he stayed in. He did 30 years in the Air Force. I have a brother, my oldest brother, went in during the war, and he spent most of his time in Okinawa. Since then I had another brother in the Marines, and I had another brother in the Navy.
Well, let's go down one generation, because I know you had a...
Got a son, was in the Army, sure.
And your son in the Army was in Vietnam, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you. I thank you for the service of all three generations, all three wars. And not that we like war, but thank you for serving. Who is this?
That's me.
Where? Why? Is this uniform?
This was our uniform of the day sometime. We was in the South China Sea. We'd made a special ops down there. We had a guy on board, and we put him out at night in a little rubber boat. And I don't even know exactly where we were at because we had our charts covered on this trip.
Now, there's a story I've never heard. Why were your charts covered?
Because they didn't want us to know where we were dropping this guy off at.
That was the rubber boat.
Yeah. Single man all by himself.
And the rest of the story, I wish Paul Harvey was here to tell me the rest of the story.
True.
So everything was covered. Well, you know, I've got such wonderful pictures here that you've brought today, but what in the world? This one looks like you're in the middle of an ice cream, a whole lot of ice cream.
That was just before we got up to the Straits. That was when we first hit some light ice.
The Straits of?
The Bering Straits, in the middle of winter, 1960. January 16th, when we left Hawaii.
So you went from Hawaii to Alaska? What was the reason?
Strictly experimental, to see if they could run through submarines through the Bering Straits in the middle of winter and go out in the Arctic Ocean.
Did it work?
It worked, but it was very dangerous. Very dangerous. They found that out.
So you're the one and only submarine. If I use the word plowed, is that going to...
No.
How'd you get through it?
In the Bering Straits, the ice hangs down in globs just like it does on an iceberg, upside down. The only way we had to pick our way through. We couldn't just run straight through. We had to pick our way in between these globs of ice. When we went into the Straits, we had a man-made or handmade piece of equipment that was right up on our forward bow, and it would train 30 degrees on either side to show us what was there. When we got in the Arctic, crushing through some of this ice, we flooded this little piece of equipment out, and we didn't have the equipment on board to repair it completely. We got it fixed so we could see with it, but we couldn't train it. So on the way out, the only way we could do is hope you didn't hit one.
hope you didn't hit it.
Hope you didn't hit a glob of ice hanging down, and that's what did happen to us on the way out.
Oh, that because this is what we're talking about, right? Ice.
Yes.
How? I mean, I want to know who took this picture. I mean, how did you get this picture? Because that's where your submarine is.
Well, you get out. We just throw a ladder over the side, a Jacob's ladder, and climb down and go out on the ice.
Did you ever do that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Knowing that you were walking on 1,000 foot of iceberg or something.
Minus 65. That was the temperature up there. We were up there.
Now, you had radio communication from this point?
Yes, most of the time. There was a time, like I said, we could only reach the South Pole.
How in the world, from the North to the South Pole?
I don't know.
Somebody with knowledge about how you could possibly do that. And that was the only contact you couldn't hear
There was a time
from?
we couldn't pick up nobody.
Was it scary?
Didn't have time to get scared.
Because you were busy.
Most of the time.
You know, submarine's a pretty little thing in a great big ocean, right?
Yes. But the nuclear boats are so much better and bigger and faster and than the old diesel boats were.
And you were on both.
I was on 5 diesel boats and then a nuclear boat.
Now, did you ever, where were you based?
All the time I was in San Diego for a short time, and then most of the time was Honolulu, sub-base Pearl Harbor.
Okay, Pearl Harbor, we all know the history of Pearl Harbor in World War II. Did you sail by that?
Every time we went to sea, in and out of the harbor, we'd go by the memorial out there.
Folks, if you ever get to Hawaii, be sure to go and honor our veterans who didn't get to come home. I was moved, greatly moved by knowing this was actually where it happened. Some of you out there can probably remember hearing it on the radio, on your local radio station. Couldn't believe it happened.
Right.
Now, I don't remember back then because I was just a little kid, but I remember the end of the war and how excited we were. Why did you make a career of?
You know, when I was about a sophomore in high school, for whatever reason, I got interested in submarines. And that's all I could think about. I didn't think of anything else. I was born and raised on a dairy farm, and I knew I didn't want to do that, even though most of my brothers and sisters did, but I didn't. And I went in the Navy before I was 18, when I was about 17 and a half, and just signed up for submarines, and I got on submarines in kind of a flunky deal.
How's that, Bill?
I was already selected to go to storekeeper school, and I was in what they call OGU, outgoing unit in San Diego, where the boots come through and it's on their way out. And on a Sunday morning, you cleaned up for around, you know. I was cleaning up at what they called OGU, outgoing unit, making coffee for the officer, full lieutenant there. A Mustang officer was an officer that came up through the ranks. He was an old Mustang officer. And he asked me what did I want to do, and I told him. I said, I wanted to go on submarines, but I'm selected to go to storekeeper school. And he asked me, he said, how soon could you have your bags packed? And I told him, mine's packed, I'm ready to go. And about 5 days later, he pulled strings somewhere, and I was on my way to New London, Connecticut to go submarine school.
Now, submarine school, you had to take extra training, right? You had to learn everything.
Right.
Now, is this right down your alley? I mean, did you every day think, lucky me?
I loved it. Same way with boot camp. I didn't mind discipline for whatever reason, as long as it was fair. It didn't bother me a bit. And it was up in New London. It was hard too, because when you was a boot, you first get up to to submarine school, you learn real quick that you're just on the bottom of the line.
New kid on the block.
Yeah. That's something else about submarines. Usually until you get qualified, you don't carry much weight. And qualified is when you get your dolphins, you're qualified on the submarine. And that's
Beauty and brains don't count one bit till you get that paper.
right, right.
There's a citation over here I wanted just to point out because you have been honored. Now tell me about it.
This was when we made a trip under the ice. By the Sorgo was awarded the Navy Unit Commendation, the Secretary of the Navy, and also at the time the Sorgo was decommissioned. She did 30 years. She was the most decorated submarine they had at the time. She had four Navy Unit commendations.
30 years of service.
Yeah, and then they started making spy submarines.
Oh.
And that's who won all the decorations. They did some things that most people don't even believe if they hear it.
Well, some of the things you're telling me, I just marvel at going under the ice and polar bears.
And polar bears. They found tracks up there.
And walking around on this ice that's so thick you can sink a ship.
Right.
The commendation came to you publicly as a group.
Right.
Now, is that after you came back from this decommissioning?
No, after we came back from the first one was awarded for making the ice trip, and after that she got 3 more Navy Unit citations for different purposes, different reasons, different things they done.
Now, Bill points out in this picture there's something a little wrong, right? There's a dent in it.
Yeah. Well,
you got to explain the dent. What's that about?
Well, when we was coming back out from being in the Atlantic, coming back out or in the Arctic, we, like I told you, we had lost our training motor on that, called it an iceberg detector. And so the only thing you could do, you knew there was ice somewhere, so the only thing you could do was go left or right a little bit. And the old man is our skipper.
Captain Old Man. Okay,
Old man,
got it.
Even though they're not, our skipper was about the same age as I was. But he was right there all the time. We were about 72 hours going through the straits. He stayed right there.
Ooh.
Slept right on his desk or his head down. But he made the wrong turn and we hit the ice. It sent us to the bottom. And after we got everything squared away, well, he came up and told us, he said, well, I guess I zigged when I should have zagged. Hit the ice.
Did he know then that when he went to the bottom, that it wasn't curtains for all of you?
Well, yeah, I think so, because that whole top up there was real heavily and built and everything, and it didn't take us maybe 15 or 20 minutes. You'd go through the whole ship, the whole submarine, and find out, make sure you got no leaks and check everything.
Weren't you scared to death, Bill?
There again, Bernie, when you're so busy, when things like you're trained so well, that when things happen, you don't get scared. You just move. Now, after everything settles back down, that's when you get shaky.
Get shaky. Bill, you've experienced this in life more than just in the military.
Oh yeah.
And I really want to give honor and credit to you and your wife.
Oh, thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit of her story? This beautiful, beautiful woman named Selma.
Well, she was in good health. And,
mother of...
We got 3 kids, got Mike, Larry, and Madeline. Madeline lives in the Seattle area, and both the boys live here. And in March of '05, she had a stroke. And since then, she's doing good. She's doing good. But she's had a stroke, and so people with had a stroke, you just have to have certain care. That's all.
And who does the cooking and bottle washing?
Me.
Baking the bread?
That's my job.
Oh, and he shared a loaf of that bread with me. She's a precious lady, and I've known her a long, long time. And the picture that we have of the two of you is just precious. Precious because that was before the stroke.
Right.
Now, my stroke did not impair that part of me. It just took my vision and my letter recognition, but hers has taken an arm and a leg.
Right side pretty well, yeah. Mm-hmm. She can use it, and I can get her in a walker and walk with her. But most of the time, she's in a wheelchair.
And you have a house now that's user-friendly.
Right.
Tell me about the doors you specifically put in.
The house was, actually, we had a new house built, and it was built for her.
With wide doors.
Wide doors, and all the hallways are extra wide. The bathrooms are all rigged with handholds and those good things. And we have in the kitchen, we've got a workbench for her that pulls out. It'll fit right over the top of her wheelchair. And in one bathroom, we've got the lavatory dropped, so she can wheel right up to that if she wants to and use the sink.
Things that I saw in your home so impressed me because knowing that strokes happen. I mean, each one of us has something go different in our lives,
right.
But that one's a real tough one because it affects the rest of your life.
Yep, right.
Her speech is not affected.
It was for a while when she first had her stroke, and she had speech therapy, and through that and just time, she's been able to. She talks good now. Yeah.
Oh yes, and she welcomed me in their home again. Bill, when your son was here on TV with me, he insisted that I shave his head because I was in chemo at the time.
Yeah.
And it was funny and fun and because here's this great big young guy who wants to honor my cancer in a way, and that was 6 or 7 years ago, and I'll never forget it. Mm-hmm. He has done some interesting things post-Vietnam. I know you're proud of him. Vietnam was a tough nut to crack, right?
Right.
How can you help us better understand our Vietnam brothers and sisters that come back home?
That PTSD thing, it's just a hard thing. It's a terrible thing. And a lot of them don't even show up. They don't even know themselves what it is or what's wrong with them. A lot of times for years afterwards, they just kind of bump their way through life, and that's more or less what happened to Mike. And really, there's no just cure. There is no cure.
No magic bullet?
No magic bullets for that, no.
And I think we're seeing the same with the guys coming.
Right now.
Women and men coming back.
Right. The better thing about it, they recognize it now, and they're trying to get to them sooner than they did before.
So for moms and dads, what would you say?
Stick by them. Pray for them.
Hey, now, wow, you heard it here. That may be the best line of the whole TV show today, because you've experienced the walk, and love them, compassion, and we all need it. Doesn't matter if it was World War II or Vietnam or your Cold War. Is that what year we're in?
Cold War.
Isn't that funny? We call Korea, where our men and women died, Cold War.
Well, I don't think the Korean War, though, was really the Cold War. The Cold War was with Russia, doing what we did.
And that's why you were up in the Aleutians?
No, we were in the Aleutians. No, that was strictly experimental. They just wanted to know if we could do it, build a fleet that could go through there. But it was so dangerous, Bernie, that they stopped it. In fact, when we first came back, we were supposed to go down to the South Pole. We were going to go do some experimenting down there. And in the meantime, we had an oxygen fire on Sargo. Killed one guy and burned the whole back end of the submarine out. And so after we got all that fixed and all this information came back, they decided, no, we don't want to do that. But they wanted us to go down and go up under that shelf ice. But it was too dangerous down there for that.
Well, my husband Doug was signed up, wanted to go to the South Pole in 1951 or 2, well, I don't know, maybe 4. He would have re-upped for the second term if he, as a radio person, gotten on, but he didn't. But the South Pole's always been a real interest to us. Quite a difference in distance, but the poles are pretty much the same. Is that right?
You mean
North and South Pole?
Temperature-wise, or what? I really don't know. I don't know that much about the
You
South
didn't get
Pole.
down there, so we
get
don't
down
know.
there.
I want to brag a little bit about you, because when you came home, was there excitement not only at your house and at every home around the base? This was in Hawaii, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did they show off for you?
That was where fireboats spraying the way in, and then on one picture there it shows the wreath they hung over the bow there. I don't know if you can see it or not.
This fireboat, I think, wasn't it wonderful that they gave you a grand welcome home?
All right.
That was one thing about. Now this is where the wreath is.
Yes, it hanging all the way across here.
Oh, like a huge lei.
Mm-hmm. That's what it actually was. Mm-hmm.
Was it made of what?
Oh, it was made of flowers and maybe plastic flowers or whatever. But
I bet that you deserve real.
This here's our clean sweep flag. It shows. See the bear up there in the flag?
And what does clean sweep mean?
It means you've been there and done it.
Oh boy. So the temperature over here was just hot. The temperature over here was cold.
This picture here, Bernie, this is ice up here on the top. That was one thing they wanted to know, is how much ice a submarine could break through. And we found out we could break through 3 solid feet of ice in a solid place. And that's what that is. That's 3 feet of ice back there on the back under our sail right there.
Okay.
We'd go up under the ice, and then we'd start rocking. Pump water back and forth, and finally we'd work our way through.
That's the way you'd go up?
That's how we'd break a hole through in certain places. Some places you couldn't even break a way through.
The idea of how work is done is fascinating to me, but this is the first time I ever heard how you maneuver how big a ship is this?
We were about 265 feet long.
And that's a big tool to be maneuvering this way and that to nudge your way up to the surface.
What we do though, we would come up easy and then we'd pump water back and forth, from forward to aft, and then just barely make the submarine rock.
See, I only understand a little of that, but I'm sure there are people out in the audience who know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Who've walked the walk.
Yeah, there's a lot of submarine people here. I've met a lot of them.
And thank you so much. You have a hat that you wear on time. I brought out Doug's Navy hats. They just kind of dusted them off, and they tried to put one on, and they didn't quite fit. But I don't know how you guys did that. You had no hair, right? They shaved your heads.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
I've still got my original boot camp hat at home.
But
White
you
hat.
brought the fancy hat
Well,
today.
chiefs and white hats wear different hats.
When you get there, when you get there, you can do that. What last thing would you like to tell our audience about who you are and what it means to be who you are now?
Well, I'm a good patriotic citizen, for one thing.
Let's wave that flag. Yes, sir.
I know a lot of things our country does is not quite. Sometimes when they do it, they may not know exactly what they're getting into, but I believe in our country 100%. And I don't think there was ever a better place to live, and I've been in a few different places. And I'm happy with my wife and my family and my kids, my church family. So that's where I'm at.
God is good,
Amen.
right?
Amen. I love the Navy. I really did. I hated to leave my wife and kids.
You'd leave you gone for how long at a time?
Most time, 6 months was the most we've ever gone. But there was times when you got orders and you didn't even know you were going. You know, you got orders, and we found. That's another thing we did. We went after the first Russian submarine and found it.
Oh, wow.
Not the first Russian submarine, but there was a new one come out of Russia, and our intelligence found out about it. We left Mare Island and ran, that one trip, we ran 19,000 miles to find that submarine, but we found it.
Yeah, those were tough times. And I sure thank you for coming on Better Life Television, Bill.
You're welcome.
And give
You're welcome.
my love to you, your wife,
I
Selma.
will. I will.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and I get to travel, well, today it was across the Pacific, just to say, this is my neighbor. This is my neighbor Bill, and I hope you've enjoyed his share as much as I have. God bless you.
Amen.